It is currently 8:48, Wednesday, October 11th, 2023. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Cohasset Affordable Housing Trust. As always, we begin the meeting with a roll call vote. Not vote, I'm sorry, a roll call. So let's start with Rob Henry.
Rob Henry here.
Okay, Cindy Matheson.
Cindy Matheson here.
All right, Rob Jeffers.
Rob Jeffers here.
Steve Gomer present. This gives us a quorum, so we will proceed with the meeting. Does everybody have a copy of the agenda?
I do not, because it didn't come through on the one email that you sent out, Cassandra, last one you sent out. So I don't know if it was on before or not. So
I picked it off of the town website.
oh, okay.
Well, I'll tell you what, Cassandra, can you just for a moment just share a screen and put it up? Thanks. Starting with the top item, is there anyone for public comment?
There's nobody else here.
Great, thank you. So let's move right on to the financial update. Linda Cole is with us, and if I recall correctly, as of the last meeting, Rob Jeffers and David Pfeiffer we're going to form a subcommittee to spearhead the representation of not only our balances but the investments themselves. So, Rob, are you prepared to take over?
On the no, I am not. I'm more than we didn't have a chance to get together, and I'm delinquent in that.
Okay, so everybody would have received early this morning reports from Bartholomew with respect to our accounts. So check your email.
Yep, I have those.
All right. And while we have representatives from Bartholomew on the line, if you would you just give a broad overview of what it is that Bartholomew does, and by way of investment strategies, and where the Affordable Housing Trust accounts would lie within those strategies?
Okay. Linda, did you want to say anything ahead of time?
No, so I just wanted to, I don't know if Jennifer, our finance director, had spoken to you all before. I think she met with you once. And so I just wanted to give you the information that we started with, which was I started here last September. Jennifer started in October. And in November, it became very apparent to us that the Affordable Housing Trust money had never been invested within a trust. It was just in the general fund accounts with other money in the banks. So we, at that point, began the process, and in December, had the money moved into one of our trust funds, which is part of our expendable trust with Bartholomew, just to make sure that it was being invested for you all. And so we do have just kind of you'll see it in the reports as kind of a general overview of how that money's been split out over the previous year and this year. And then for sure, Michelle and Chuck, who are a wealth of information on such things, can give you more specifics for questions that you have. So I'll turn it over to Michelle and Chuck and let them speak if they'd like.
Okay.
Actually, one quick question to Linda before we begin. So, Linda, is our money commingled with the looking at this with the rest of the town's money? I'm just asking that because I was under the impression that we were our own legal entity. So I was just a little surprised to see it commingled.
So it's in with our expendable trust, which is obviously not all of town's money. That's where we have our separate trusts set up. And while all of it is working under the expendable trust funds, they are individually line itemed out so that you're able to see the balances in each one, and they're earning their own information, which Michelle's giving you the reports on those particular to you.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just going to give a very quick overview so you understand who we are and what our background is. So Bartholomew and Company is an independent investment firm based in Worcester, Massachusetts. We've been in business since 1994, managing municipal funds since 1994. We're currently managing over 4.4 billion assets in the firm, of which over 2.7 billion represents municipal funds that we're investing across 300 municipal entities. Most of those are in Massachusetts. We do have a few in Maine, New Hampshire, and Providence, Rhode Island as well. So we have a deep understanding of Mass General Law and how funds can be invested according to Mass General Law. We have 4 of us on our government and institution team, of which Chuck Patterson is the head of our team. He is also a former certified municipal treasurer. He was the treasurer in the town of Shrewsbury for 14 years. So he has a lot of knowledge on Mass General Law and what it's like to sit on the other side of the desk. And so I just wanted to give that very brief overview so that you know we've been working with municipalities for a very long time. And so this is the way that we manage a lot of money. So there's a very big bucket of funds that is under Chapter 4454 of Mass General Law, which has had to adhere to the Massachusetts Legal List of Investments, which is a very restrictive, conservative list. And these funds are invested for safety, liquidity, and yield. Obviously, OPEB funds, which we manage some OPEB money for the town as well, is under Chapter 203, which is Prudent Investor. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chuck to talk a little bit more about affordable housing and how it pertains to Mass General Law. And then, of course, we want this to be interactive. So we want to make sure that, you know, as you have questions, feel free to ask them and we can move along and talk about the performance of the expendable trusts as well. So Chuck, why don't you go ahead and say a few words.
Thank you, Michelle. As Michelle has stated, and Linda has stated, the Affordable Housing Trust falls under Chapter 4454 of Mass General Laws. In Chapter 4454, it allows us to pool the money. So as Linda stated, whatever your proportionate share of the fund is, that's what you receive in income and gains. So this is very, very common. We have many cities and towns that we manage their affordable housing trusts. So this is very common. As far as the legal list, Michelle stated, it's about 22, 23 stocks. Very, very limiting, but at the very least, it gets you away from having money in a bank account. Granted, right now, interest rates are a lot higher than they were a year ago, but when you look over the long term, a managed portfolio with probably, Michelle will state exactly how much equity we have, but any portion of equity versus bonds will help the account to grow. So that's a quick rundown of the law, and then I'll turn it back to Michelle so she can go over the portfolio analysis.
Yes, so our performance report, starting on page 2, shows you how the account is broken out. So this has been in about 30 to 35% equity since inception, with the other 70% in fixed income. So corporate bonds of companies on the legal list, we've barbelled that with U.S. Treasuries and government agencies from purchases a few years back, with the remainder of this portfolio. This portfolio we've had since July of 2014. We utilize a money market fund. I think there's like one remaining CD and one bond fund ETF that's on the legal list. So obviously the current yield is being shown below. In the income that is being generated. We're going to move down to page 3, which shows the historical market value and performance summary. On the left is going to track since inception through the date of the report, and on the right will track the current fiscal year. So I gave June 30th just because I felt like it was a good one to share with the complete fiscal year. So since inception, time weighted return annualized net of fees has been 3.38%. which would be a number that we would expect to see in a portfolio that's invested under the legal list very conservatively and invested once again for that safety, liquidity, and yield. So on the right-hand side, the,
Can I break in here for just a second?
of course, yes.
We're not restricted by the legal list. I wonder why you're using it.
Chuck, do you want to talk about that with affordable housing and prudent and how it relates to prudent investor?
When you say you're not restricted, did you have some sort of enabling statute that says you don't need to follow it?
Yes, we did in
Yeah.
2019, I believe it was.
Yep, so the town of
Okay.
Cohasset did get special legislation passed in order to do prudent investor. I have not been able to find anywhere where they then enacted it as far as any of their money or their portfolios. They got the right to do it, which we know looks like it's coming out through the whole state at this point. But I don't believe that they ever utilized the fact that they had prudent investor rights to get out from underneath the legal list.
All that work and we didn't do a
Okay.
damn thing with it. Beautiful.
Perfect. So what can happen, just in August, the governor signed a local option ability to go prudent investor. So you guys took the long route. Now all cities and towns can go prudent by simply taking it to town meeting, which you have already done. And then now it's just a matter of taking the next steps to actually invest under prudent. What prudent would be is opening yourself up to anything in the world. And then all we would then do is talk about the asset allocation. And are you going to go, 60-40, 70-30? Are we going to have all funds? Are we going to have individual stocks and bonds of individual companies? That can happen in another conversation. But as of today, it is following the legal list. If the town so votes, which it has, and we are instructed, then we come back, talk to Linda, and talk to the committee, and then we set up a portfolio that will meet your needs.
I
In
do
that
believe that those,
discussion, you talk about risk.
I do believe that those activities were undertaken by the town. As a matter of fact, that's why we moved forward with the legislation in the first place. It was always head scratching to me when I was sitting on the Board of Selectmen that we would actually confine ourselves to 23 securities. And I'm shocked, really shocked, that no one communicated such to you, because we've been working with Bartholomew since I think 2014.
It was always, it's my understanding, it was always the, former treasurers wanted to keep these funds. Well, stabilization cannot be invested under prudent
No.
investment.
I understand that.
No, I
It
know just the
was-
history of the, yes, that's just the history of the relationship with the town, and yes.
Okay. Fair enough. I'm sorry, for you folks from Bartholomew, this is not it's not an issue for you. It's an issue to take up internally with the town. I can't understand for the life of me why we've been able to diversify our investments more broadly for 4 years and we've done nothing. My God, I wonder if we're still digging trenches with spoons.
I will say more flexibility would be ideal. So
I would imagine you'd appreciate that. Yes.
And we can definitely,
Yes.
we can definitely work on that. As I said, we've just gotten the funds even invested. They weren't invested prior to December. So step one is to get them invested, and I can speak with you all and speak with Bartholomew to end up going the route of prudent investor. But yes, I hadn't seen any activity where any of the money was done under prudent investor for any accounts.
So we would be happy to, follow up with another meeting and bring a member of our investment team and work with the committee, however you would like to invest this portfolio.
Well,
With our
keep
feedback.
in mind that you're not, as you pointed out, you're not segregating funds, right? You're pooling the common trusts.
So yes, they're invested together, pooled, tracked separately. However, we can break out the affordable housing into a separate account, and then that way it can be invested as the committee decides.
For
Well,
sure.
we appreciate that. I think that is, we welcome your offer. That's exactly the point of having the subcommittee examine this.
Mhm.
We we're looking at is saying there's a portion of our funds that should be invested for longer term appreciation. There's a portion of our funds that should be kept relatively safe and liquid, and then there's a portion of our funds that should probably be kept liquid, right, for immediate need. So the overall investment strategy is is unique to the housing trust, but seeing as it is that you're currently running it outside of the prudent investor legislation, it would be difficult for you to do that way. So, okay.
So
All right.
what
I'm
do we?
sorry.
Can I
Go,
make
go, go ahead,
just
Rob.
a couple of points. One, on the special act that allowed the prudent investor rule, it required the select board to create and let me just find the exact language. I've got too many screens up here. To create a town of Cohasset cash and investment policy. And I'm not sure if that's ever happened.
It
but
has.
that's the
Those-
step that needs to happen first before you can
Cheers.
actually start utilizing prudent investor.
Karis, those were enacted.
The policies were.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I mean, they may be hanging around in someone's file drawer, but they were enacted.
Okay, great. And then under the declaration of trust, you all have the independent authority to hold property, manage your investments, and obviously because you're a public or a quasi-public entity, you still have to comply with the general laws, or in this case, the prudent investor rule. So I think your approach, Steve, of having a subcommittee, and I just want to remind that subcommittee that when you meet, it's a public meeting, and so you need to post and you need to have minutes. That seems like a reasonable approach. So
Right. Okay.
So
Thank
what
you.
would be? Sorry, go ahead, Steve. Sorry.
No, Rob, it's you have the floor.
So what would be the next step in order for us to segregate these out? Like, what do you need from us in order to do that so that we can then have that discussion about how we would like these monies invested?
I think the next steps would be to have a meeting to talk about risk profile and investment of the overall portfolio, but it is as simple as opening up a new account. The funds can be journaled over from this account to the new account. And then obviously we want to time that with having proper investment direction.
Okay. Should we set that meeting up with you? Should I go through you to set that up? Me and David will do that.
I think you should go if you want to go through Linda, and then
Linda, sure.
Yes, I mean, it's really up to Linda. You're always sure, of course, welcome to reach out and ask any questions.
Just trying to figure out how to actually get there. So
Yeah.
I don't drop the ball again.
Sure.
We could definitely coordinate a time once I hear from you and what'll work out, and I'll get back in touch with Bartholomew to see if they can be in on the meeting at the same time, so we could talk about risk factors, et cetera.
Yeah, and I think that's to Steve's point, there's going to be things where we know we're going to need money. We plan on spending it, on projects in the next year. So obviously we're going to invest that very differently than stuff that we don't have earmarked, which we'll be willing to take, different risk. And then obviously if we're not constrained to the stocks, we'll speak to David and the rest, but we'd probably look at, can we just do index funds or something a little bit more diversified?
Okay.
Right.
So,
Okay, Rob, do you feel like you've got what you need to proceed
Yeah.
with that conversation?
Yeah, so what I'll do is me, David, and we'll reach out to you, Linda. We'll set a time. We'll make sure that it's a public meeting, that it's so that it's out there, and we'll take minutes on that. And then we'll have that discussion with them about what our options are to kind of change it a little bit.
Sounds good.
The only other question I had on this in general was, I remember us saying a number around $1 million, and I see that on your second file, we're at about 800,000. Is that, maybe we were just rounding up, but I just want to make sure that, everybody else on the trust, is that their recollection that we should be at about 800,000, or do we think that we should be closer to $1 million?
If it's the overall trust amount, we've already had one report that would indicate a balance at 1.2 million. Although that was not a cash flow balance. I think the cash flow balance is arguably closer to 1,050,000. So I don't know where the rest of the money is. That was part of the original question with respect to a financial review. And for the folks from Bartholomew, that's an internal question, not one directed at you.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to I know the initial transfer was a little over 862,000 back in December of 22.
Yeah, that's what the finance director said was on the books for the affordable housing at that
Yeah.
point.
In December of 22, that's probably correct. I believe that might be the right number, because for those of you who recall, we had an additional grant at annual town meeting, this past annual town meeting, and a conditional grant as well. So the annual grant the grant at the annual town meetings for an additional $250,000, and we had a conditional $250,000. It was project-based. Okay, and I think we drew 180 from that. So there's a roughly $430,000 that would have flowed in on top of the 880, plus bills that would have been paid, offsetting that. So 880 would have been about right, I think, as of end of calendar year 22. Are you saying fiscal year 22?
No, calendar.
Calendar year.
Calendar year 22. Okay.
December 22nd. Yeah.
So Linda, should we follow up with you on that? Maybe me and Dave can look at
Sure,
that.
yep. I can talk to our accountant's office too and see what they have for the recordings, but we can definitely look into what's going on with it.
My guess is it could just be sitting in a bank account and never got transferred over. We can hope.
Yeah, if it was marked as affordable housing trust, I would have moved it pretty quickly. So let me talk to the finance director and see what's going on there, what they have in their records as well.
Yep, so I'll follow up.
Okay. Bartholomew has been very good to step into our meetings, so I want to make sure we do use their time appropriately. Does anybody have additional questions about what we're reviewing?
I mean, I'd say I was happy to see that the money market fund is actually a good money market fund that has real interest rates like 5%, not 2 basis points that I have in my other Fidelity account. So
too, for sure.
we do appreciate that.
Well, I always do the disclaimer with all the municipal clients that we have, don't get used to that number, but it is nice. It is nice to see for right now. Yes.
But I know a lot of other firms will put clients in bad money market funds and take the shareholder servicing fees, and I see that you didn't do that, so we do appreciate that.
Well, you're welcome. We're very committed to our
I'm assuming that you use Fidelity as your clearing broker.
Oh, yes. So, yes, National Financial Services is our custodian, and Commonwealth Financial is our broker dealer, which is based in Waltham and has in San Diego. Yes.
Okay, good. So Linda gets statements from Fidelity.
Yes.
Got it. All right, super. I have no further questions, and it's not because of a lack of interest on the subject, but I think we've found out a whole lot of information today, which has been useful to us and also gives us a starting point to maybe work a bit more definitively with funds that we have through you.
Great.
Okay.
Well, feel free to send along any other questions that may come up in the meantime between now and our next meeting. So we're always happy to answer those and give any information that's needed.
Okay, got it. All right. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate your time and all the information you provided us so far.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Have a great day.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Chuck and Michelle.
And thank you for allowing me to be on Zoom and on the car. As we were talking, a large sheet of plywood flew up in the air, hit my car, and broke my side rear view mirror.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God. Well, I'm glad you're okay though, right? You're
Yeah,
okay?
I still kept driving. I don't know what the front of my car looks like, but I kept driving.
No, I
My
mean,
mirror is hanging off on the passenger side.
you physically are okay. You haven't been hurt.
Yes.
Oh,
No,
good.
no. It just hit the nose in my car and it went airborne and
Oh
it
my
hit the
God.
mirror on the side. So,
No,
yeah, there was dangers of driving on the highway.
Always an
So,
adventure.
well, thank you for allowing me
Yes.
to be here on your on the call.
We appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right,
And,
take care.
All right.
avoid
Have a
avoid
good day.
anybody who's
Bye-bye.
carrying anything, would you?
Right, absolutely. Thanks
All
again.
right. Take care. All right. Just as follow-up from that conversation, and I know Rob, you and David were going to take this on. It's worthwhile, from my perspective, to coordinate with Linda, recognize that we are not restricted as a town by the legal list. That's for for anybody listening in. It's a bit like saying you can choose any color you want so long as it's black or white, right? Take a look at those stocks and imagine that your investment outcomes are defined by those 23 stocks, which only occasionally are reviewed. And by the way, if you really like our legislature, wouldn't you want them investing for you? Okay, so having said that, the prudent investor rule allows for allocation. It allows for use of ETFs. It allows for the use of funds, obviously administered under the eyes of the treasurer collector and by investment professionals who are skilled and certified to make municipal investments. That's Bartholomew, and I do believe, Linda, we also use Rockland Trust to do some of this work too.
They don't have any of the affordable housing money, but we do
No,
invest.
as a town.
Yes, we use Rockland Trust. We use PRIT, which is the state one, and then we use Bartholomew as well. Yep.
Okay. So my experience with Bartholomew is pretty much as you saw today. They're responsive, as is Rockland Trust, by the way.
Yes, IMG. Yeah, they do a great job too.
And so Rob, lead the parade on this one. Let's talk about what is let's think about what is the appropriate investment approach for our funds, recognizing that we will need from time to time, we will need liquidity, and we probably need some level of money in an operating account just to take care of our extraordinary legal bills, if nothing else.
Yep.
Gareth, it's a joke. Okay, thank you.
One question to Linda on the trust. So does the trust, sorry, I'm not familiar with the municipal laws. Are we a taxable entity? So are we paying taxes on the gains, or is this tax free?
You're not taxable.
Awesome. So I don't have to worry about those gains. Okay, good.
No. Okay. Any other questions on this? All right, Linda, thank you very much for your time. Rob from
I'll get in touch.
committee will be in touch with you. And
That sounds great. Thanks. We could get the ball rolling.
okay, thanks again.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too. All right, steering committee update. Do we have Paul with us, Cassandra?
Paul is not here.
Was he intending to be?
I think Ted had asked, or you had asked, to put it on the agenda. I did send him the invite. He accepted it tentatively, but not confirmed that he would be here.
Okay, that's not helpful. All right, so that all of you understand, I had asked that the steering committee give us an update not only on their plans, but on their views with respect to One Pleasant Street. There are a number of questions that have arisen about the intersection of affordable housing steering committee, affordable housing trust, and any level of intended activity between ourselves and One Pleasant Street. I have to tell you that at the moment, it's unclear to me which is to say that there's no specific indication that the selectmen have either asked for or are encouraging input. And that's why I think it's important for collectively for us to understand what's taking place and how it impacts us. Cindy Matheson had produced a series of questions which had arisen partly from, I think, her own view, partly from listening to the audience generally at a couple of forums, and probably from listening to me burn her ear from time to time. And I don't know, do you have, Cindy, do you have those questions such that you can share a screen?
Cassandra sent them out to everybody yesterday.
I could pull them up and share it on the screen if you'd like.
Thanks, Cassandra. I appreciate it. I don't know, have each of you had an opportunity to review them?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so what I'd like to do at the moment is ask each of you to identify for yourselves what your views are, not your views, but what your questions might be, because we have been invited as a trust to appear to meet with the selectmen, but on their agenda for the 24th of this month.
Steve, before we get into that, can I just add that this is not an exclusive list. It's just a starting point for keeping a running, just a running tally of whatever questions any board members have to make this, if we are going forward and making this happen.
Right. And so it's one of the reasons I was hopeful that Paul Kears might be able to join us today, because the views from the steering committee might be quite different from any questions that we might have.
Yeah.
And so,
Steve?
yes, Rob.
One thing I think is a preface to going through all this, again, I, been around town a long time. I've just talked to a variety of people. It's not an official sample, but this is getting into the category of, communication to the town, what it is, because everybody's so sensitive to the town hall situation, and why are they doing this, and how are they doing this, and how are you going to do. There's a lot of questions, and they're not like positive questions. They're all like, well, what's doing that? So I think from whatever we can do from our standpoint, that we need to present if it is a positive feature, but at least some specifics on how we feel in these questions and there are other questions, because there's a lot of concern, I feel, within the town about this idea of what this project is, and why is the town really going to buy this and own this, and how are they going to factor in the affordable housing here? What happens if they don't sell them, and who's going to manage the the other units in there that are part of the town hall? So there's just a lot of stuff going on, just in really in a few weeks. It's generating a lot of concern, I think, within the town.
Well, I think that's precisely the reason we want to get these questions out and on the table, because, very simply, the town has two bodies, the steering committee and the trust, that have generated a level of understanding. I may be going out on a limb and saying expertise in what is a highly regulated area of activity that is legislatively required in every single community in the state of Massachusetts, right? And I would hope that if the Board of Selectmen wants to move forward with the purchase of that real estate and propose it to the town in a way that the town finds, the residents of the town find attractive, that one of the things that they would encounter are the areas where questions would arise, and that is, to me, the real estate that is not a part of the everyday activities of administration of the town, residential units. And that would be, ideally where that expertise would be applied. And the questions that the questions that Cindy documented here, as she points out, are not exclusive, but that's exactly why I'm polling each of the members attending today to think about what questions that you want answered. And it's not because that you want them answered, but from the perspective of the trust, what are the things that we would like to know? I mean, are you anticipating, one of my biggest, of course, personally, is, are you anticipating that there is an activity that you're going to want, the selectmen are going to want the trust to take over, to manage? And and tell me the terms under which you're considering that, because frankly, we certainly like to know where our assistance is being assumed or not. And ultimately, the question comes down to, if to something fairly simple. If you don't want our activity in any of this, then are we still the group that you're expecting to finance and develop affordable housing within the town, or are we actually doing something competitive with the town? Because the two of those activities sure seem to butt heads against each other, because we end up competing for resources. So that's a summary of my view, but that's just my view. Rob, go ahead.
Yeah, no, so I did get a call from one of the select board members, and I was very clear that I was only talking as myself when I was talking, and not on behalf of the Affordable Housing Trust. My sense from them is, and I'm not saying I agree with it, but they're looking to try to move this forward, and that their assumption is that the Affordable Housing Steering Committee and the Affordable Housing Trust will figure it out. If they do get approval. I don't, like, she was asking for input on, thoughts and, of how it was going, and, and on the project. And I said, to be honest, I really don't understand what the project is. It's like, there's so many, I mean, yes, you have some questions here, but I could probably add 15 more. It's like, I can answer some of these actually, but, because some of them are just about affordable housing in general. But it's like, it feels like they're trying to do a 6-month project in 3 weeks. And it's like, it can, what's the things that can be cheap, it can be good, or it can, fast. And it's like
good, fast, cheap. Pick any two.
and it's just like, I mean, there's a lot of unknowns, and it's like, but as I said, I'm not opposed to the concept of having more affordable housing and having real affordable housing units. I just don't know that anybody knows exactly how it will be done. And to your point, Steve, I think there's some assumptions out there that have not been verbalized, of us and of the Affordable Housing Steering Committee, which, I think we need to have a discussion with the select board to understand what's your plan. Like, let's say you get this, it's like the dog catches the fire truck. Okay, great, you got it. How are we going to actually make this happen? Because I didn't get the sense that there's a clear understanding there, but I could be wrong.
Well, I think you and I share the same view on that. The email communication I received from the chair of the Board of Selectmen seems to indicate that this will somehow all be resolved as of the meeting on the 24th. And I share your view that this feels like a 6-month project being crammed into a 3-week hustle. And look, there's a lot going on here. It does not do anything from the perspective of adding units to what we already anticipated would be in town, because, as I pointed out, this project was permitted with an affordable housing component. The only way it gets built or occupied is with that affordable housing component, and that unit count is actually down 1 from 14 units to 13. And the funding, at least the partial funding for it, it comes from the primary benefactor to the trust. So one could actually look at this and say, well, future monies are being directed to something that was going to be built anyway. And those future monies will, at this point, not be available to the trust because they've already been spent or committed by CPC, contingent upon a town meeting vote. So there are a lot of questions that I have as to whether or not it advances the objectives of the town. Right now, I believe we're at 10.91% as of the 2030 census for affordable housing.
10.19.
10.19.
Woohoo!
Well, that's great, right? But here, take a look at it. We're about to begin 2024, right? We've had almost 4 years of building in this town. That's funny. I drove down Cedar Street and saw 4 houses I never knew existed, right? And I go down Cedar Street a fair amount. The leaves are falling. And that's my point, is that 2030 is not going to be nearly as forgiving. So the task at hand to add units to the affordable housing inventory hasn't lost its meaning. That's why I bring this up. I'm sorry that the steering committee chair wasn't available for today's meeting. And I don't know that we'll be able to communicate with him directly, committee to committee. So I was hopeful that we would be able to at least get together and present a coordinated list of questions, and hopefully the town's ready to discuss it. That's all I have to say about it, because anything more at this point is completely speculative on my part or our part collectively, because there is a gap in knowledge. So we'll leave it at that. Karis will come back to you in just a second, and
That's fine.
and I'll leave it at that for now, unless anybody else has comments or questions, in which case now's the time to air them. But I did recognize Karis first, so Karis, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you would include me in this email, in the questions, to the extent I can help sharpen them. Obviously, the town is getting its own legal counsel, and to Rob's point, the first questions are almost all affordable housing questions that are, answered by the regulations and the guidelines, and they should be pretty straightforward. The second half are really factual questions, obviously, that the select board's gonna have to articulate, because that's gonna influence, all of the documents related to the acquisition. But if there are additional ones, or I can help sharpen them, I'm happy to help. And then just secondly, Cassandra, the EOHLC SHI list has a different number for Cohasset than what you indicated. And so I just wanted to make sure, has that number been updated with the state yet? Because right now the state has
Yes.
it. Okay.
So the number that is listed on the state's website is from back in, I think, June or July.
Yeah.
We have had units added since then.
Okay, great.
So the state just hasn't updated their website.
Yeah, no, that only gets updated once a year. So,
Yep.
okay, thank you.
So, thank you, Karis, because I'm obviously not an expert. I'm a volunteer on the committee. And that's why I sent the list to Cassandra saying, I'm pretty sure these are answerable somewhere. I have a general idea from the things that I've read, but I'm no expert. And so it would be great to have, for all of us, to have some of those numbers nailed down. For example, workforce housing, how is that determined, and how does it run through a lottery and so forth? Because to me, the opportunity in One Pleasant to offer workforce housing is the greatest advantage in this project, because we have no other, there's no other place of opportunities like this where the town owns a certain number of units that we can then designate as workforce housing. And if we continue with it, that's where I would hope that we can make a little bit of a difference in the small a affordable housing to our town employees, which would be of a great overall benefit to the community.
Yeah, no, it's an attractive component, Cindy, for certain, and there are, you know, there are also practical questions that surround it. I think some of which you articulate here. Really, I mean, those are, if you will, those are landlord questions, and critically important to the maintenance of those properties over time. So,
Right.
Any other commentary? Excuse me, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know if this is allowed, but would it be helpful for me? I mean, I guess somebody mentioned, sorry, I can't see the names there. The first 7 questions are, you know, answerable. Can I write the answers and send that out, or is that against the rules?
I believe that any communication that we have would actually end up going back through Cassandra for a consolidation. But I believe, from the perspective of adding to the questions and sharing our knowledge between one another, I believe that if it proceeds through Cassandra and everybody shares in the same information, then that might be a lot. No,
Yeah,
Karis,
no,
Karis is shaking her head. She's
yeah,
got her gun out. So
that's deliberation by
Okay.
email. So essentially you need to discuss these answers in a meeting. So
why don't we leave them, Karis, thank you. Why don't we leave them as questions? And if anyone has additional questions to add to this, that we would share as questions between one another, let's do that.
I try to, Karis, I don't understand, if we're a committee and we're a team and it goes through Cassandra in the town, why can't somebody answer questions to give us more perspective?
because
has the answer.
the Attorney General, you can do it in a meeting. You cannot do it by email. It has to be in a public meeting. The Attorney General has said that is deliberation, because you are talking about substantive issues within the purview of your community, of your committee, and it's a quorum of the board. And
Right.
I'm just reporting to you what the AG has said. That's deliberation. You can't do it by email.
Yeah, Rob, there's anything that could help lead us to a decision has to be done in public.
So we could ask Rob, if he knows off the top of his head, how to answer some of these questions right now.
Yes, you could do so because it's within a meeting, and we could do that. Yes.
You want me to just go through them real quick?
Sure.
I think it's a good idea.
Number one, you can have different incomes, you know, 100, 120%, 80%. In order for something to be on our SHI, it has to be 80% or better.
Right.
But they could deed restrict it differently and have workforce housing for 100 or 120% if they so chose. The lottery is run, you know, I believe here it's like we would hire a separate group to run the lottery. And the way workforce housing, this is a preference. It's not a guarantee. So once you deed restrict it, it's deed restricted, you know, so you can't charge more than the 100% or the 80% or the 120%. When the lottery goes out, so let's say it's a workforce, those people have preference, which means if they put their application in, they go to the head of the line. So if there's somebody like a fireman puts it in and they're eligible and there's nobody else from the town that did it, and there's only people from outside the town, they get it. However, once all of those are reviewed, the people who are eligible and then are in workforce housing, it then goes to the rest of the group. You don't get to say, nope, we don't want to do it because we didn't get the workforce housing. It has to go through the lottery, and it's whoever comes in to do it. I see you have a question, Cindy.
So if, for example, say we set it at 120% of AMI, first choice goes to firemen, teachers, town employees of the town of Cohasset. Anybody after that, if it's not filled, anyone who just matches at 120% of area of AMI could be part of the workforce housing.
It could be part of the affordable. These would be called affordable units. So
Gotcha.
yes. It wouldn't be workforce housing because they're not workforce, but this is a preference. That's all that. So it's just giving the individuals that work in the town a preference if they go into the lottery.
but
So which-
everybody can go into the lottery, regardless of where you work. You can't, say, no, Karis is saying I'm wrong.
No, so just a couple of points about that too. No, you're right, Rob. It's called local preference under the guidelines and the rules usually, and it can't exceed more than 70% of the affordable units, and it cannot have any disparate impact on classes of people protected under the Federal Fair Housing Act, and it has to be approved by the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, formerly DHCD, just so that you understand there are some limitations there as well. And as Rob said, if the AMI is over 80% of the AMI for the region, which in this instance would be Boston, then those units don't go on the SHI. So they don't count towards your affordable housing. They have to be 80% of the AMI or less to be on the SHI.
So Karis.
I thought that they were already, if 4 or whatever percentage when this was approved, the 4 units that are actual affordable housing, then it gives the remainder is counted as going as 4 SHI. Is that still the case, even if we designated them as workforce housing?
Those 4 have to be at 80% of the AMI
Right.
or less.
Right, but once,
I think,
yes,
yes.
But the others, you can do what you wish with them. Yes.
and they still count as on the SHI.
Yes.
Because of the 4, yeah. Water and sewer can be put into the rental rates. However, that does not change the amount that you can charge. So basically, the town would be making less money if they do that. So normally, looking at, I looked at a few different listings. Some of them include them, some of them don't. If you're going in a condo fee, HOA fees are in addition to your rent, your affordable rent. That number can change.
Rob,
The rental rates.
Hold on for just a second. I want to back up. So the 80% is defined as the rent, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So
No, that's the income of the eligible persons.
No, I understand. So when you come around to it, though, the restriction, or if you will, what makes a unit affordable is a rent number, not the cost of occupation.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
So we have really, really high water things. You're just screwed.
Well, you might remember or you may not, but we as a community committed to metering every living unit, which wasn't the case in the past. In the past, we would meter an apartment building, right? But not every living unit. And so the point of that is that that water becomes expensive, and as does sewer, by the way, in the town. And I bring that up because it's something to consider with respect to the financial calculations surrounding these units. That's all.
Yep. The other piece is there are things that people in this situation can apply to get help with energy and water and stuff like that. But that would be separate and outside of this.
Okay.
Sorry, I skipped over number 4. The rental rates are calculated. It's based on the average median income of the area that we're in. And it's based on how many people will be habitating in the unit. So right now, this is an approximate number. 2 people, in a 1-bedroom, I think it goes for about $2,000. That will change annually, and it's set by the housing authority in the state. We're in the Boston metro area, so it's not Cohasset specific. It's it's broader than just Cohasset, but it is the Boston area. The cost when we got a lottery manager that's in the it's like low 10,000s to do something like that. Property manager is usually going to be a percentage of the rent. I don't know exactly what that would be. You're also going to be paying first month's rent to the property manager for anything that they put in. Number 7, I don't know, because I don't know the costs.
Okay.
Can I just come back, one other comment then, going back to initially the issue about preference for workforce housing, and that, again, to me, that's the big advantage of this project. It sounds like it will be really important to communicate and market and advertise to local town employees this opportunity, and be sure that everyone is fully informed about that if we want to boost the number of local employees possibly applying in the lottery.
Yeah, and it's like, and talking to other people or other towns, it's like, people think, oh, great, now we're gonna have, 14 units with teachers in it. It doesn't really work that way, because you need the person to happen to be moving at the exact moment in time that these things are coming up. So it's something that's more of a long-term thing, is that you make it aware so that people know that it's a possibility, that when it does come up, they can kind of check
Gotcha.
on this. But it's like with a lot of these types of things, it's hard. It's like, you're right that I think we, or the Affordable Housing Steering Committee, would need not just a one-time communication, but a consistent communication out there, so that when it comes up, maybe we luck out and we're able to make a match. But a teacher could be moving and it's not the right, nothing's open, or stuff like that. So it's not like you're going to get 14 workforce. I mean, if we get 3 or 4, that'd be awesome. I think, for just to set expectations in the beginning.
Thank you. That's important.
Okay.
Yeah, seem like more like questions for the board, so I won't go.
Okay. Anything else on this? Okay, seeing nothing, nothing coming up by hand. Let's move on. Do we have a CPC representative? Cassandra? I know Ted had inserted this. I don't suspect we have one.
I don't believe you do.
Okay. Let's then we'll move on to the updates on 43 Elm. Rob, you want to take over?
Yes, sir. We have made, we're ready to go. So I want to just tell you what, I negotiated with we've got enough people who we've talked to, and we have one bidder, Richard Jones of Jones Painting and Home Improvement. Anyway, he gave us an initial quote, and I then met with him and talked to him and so forth. And one of the things about the quote, which I don't like in quotes, is it was not that specific. It gave some round numbers and items. So I asked him to pretty much bid this thing in line item and take a look at it. I mean, I did share with him that we can put it under a certain category if it's under $50,000. And I think the first number he came in with was, I don't know, 54,000. Anyway, I was able to negotiate with him, and he came through with a number of $44,975. So that fits well in there, and it covers everything. The only thing that is not in here, which I'm not sure, and I also checked with Ted, there will be one appliance that was not in here. It'll be a stove oven. They'll have to be added to it. But in his quote, he said that it's the $44,975, and plus or minus 10% for contingencies. And he puts right in his quote, the work being done will not go over $50,000. So he is ready to go. He's involved in I think it's Situate, in building a Masonic, a Mason's building, I guess it is, Masonic building. And that should be done within a couple, 3 weeks. But if he has rain dates, he would start, immediately at 43 Elm. So I think everything from the legal standpoint is in line. I guess we have to vote as a committee to move forward with this on this project. And then also the question, he might need a deposit. What's the procedure, Sandra, for getting him partial payment if he needs it?
That I'm not sure, because typically the way that towns issue payments is that once we've either received the product or the service. So I'm not sure about partials. I would have to follow up with either Jennifer or Linda about that.
Okay, well, he didn't talk about it, but it's, I mean, in any building project, involved in a lot of those kind of things over the years. I mean, a guy's entitled to a deposit to buy materials, so you shouldn't have to take that out of his pocket. By the way, just a question, did the bill get paid for the guys that did the cleanup?
Yes, they did fill out a W-9. I did submit that.
That
bill
has
later.
been paid, correct?
I assume I sent it to accounting, but I can follow up with them
Would
to
you
ensure
please,
that
because
it's been paid.
Unfortunately, these things I wouldn't assume anything, but
Good, that's fair. Karis, is there anything within municipal law that would prevent us from effectively making an earnest payment to a contractor?
Yeah, under the chapter 44, you're not allowed to pay for work in advance of it being completed.
How about
And
materials?
materials, you can, pay when you could pay them for the materials once they've been purchased. So you could, but the treasurer and the select board have to sign the warrant affirming that the services have been provided and that the materials or the equipment has been provided as well. So you can't pay up front.
no, it's
Oh,
not.
but we can pay for materials up front.
If he gives us an invoice for paint or for things that he has to buy, he's got to repair the radiators and he's got covers he's got to buy. So if he presents an invoice, I just want to know what to do, because he hasn't asked for a deposit per se, which I'm surprised he hasn't, and I understand we're not going to pay in advance. I understand all that, but if he buys materials so he can keep going on the project to get it completed, we can get him paying for that. Is that right?
Absolutely. And if he's a third of the way through, his work, you can pay him for a third of the work he's done or some portion of it.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait until it's completed, but you just can't pay in advance.
Yeah, okay, I understand it.
You have to certify the work is done. So Rob, what this means effectively is that we could probably make intermittent payment, but we have to certify, which is to say that you and Ted have to certify as subcommittee that you're satisfied with the work for which we're being billed.
No, I do that. And what do you call in the building rules? It's called progress payments. That's really what it is.
Right.
So does anybody have any questions about what's going on in the building in terms of things he's doing?
Yeah, no, the question I have is, you have his line item quote, is it something that you can share with us so that we know what we'd be voting on?
Just run down what's included?
No, a share screen.
I don't have a screen, no, because I haven't made a copy. I wanted to, the town wasn't open Monday and then I've been busy. I was gonna get a copy of it made with Cassandra. Now, I sure as heck don't want to waste, I don't want to delay this thing because you all haven't seen it, so it's very straightforward.
Oh, well, I recognize it's very straightforward, but we are a fiduciary group.
No,
So with this.
By the time I can just run right down the whole thing.
Rob, I understand you can. We're about to expend somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000. Taking a look at it so that we all answer any questions we might have is, I think, a reasonable request. If we have to pull together another 5-minute meeting to review it in this or early next week, I'm sure we can pull it off. I don't want to hold him up either.
Oh,
The fact of the matter is,
I called him on Friday out of courtesy and said, because he'd done this, and I said that we are definitely still very interested. I just don't want him to say, we waited too long. We will not get another. Nobody wants to do this job because it's too small. So,
look, I get it. I'm not crazy about it either, but that doesn't mean that we are suddenly relieved from our own duties. All right, we're sitting here talking about not having enough information or any basic information on a fairly big project that the town wants to take on, and we can't be behaving the same way ourselves.
Sorry, what did you, I didn't hear what you just said. You can't behave in what?
behaving the same way ourselves. Rob, are you looking to speak? Rob Jeffers?
Oh, sorry, no, I'm good. Sorry, somebody came into my office.
I'll open it up to the trust members. Cindy?
How long would it take to put together the list that we can all look at and review?
I have it
And-
right here,
Pardon?
right here. But I just haven't got a copy that we can put on the screen. I mean, everything's detailed, that's what I'm saying. Again,
But it just needs to be part of our minutes and our record.
yeah, well, I can take it down to Cassandra today. And I mean, we could even vote, maybe contingent on you all see it and you approve that, at least get it done, because we have to get, you say it's easy to get another meeting, but I don't think that's that easy to get another meeting. We can't even get everybody here for the regular meeting.
Paris. Assuming that we take a vote conditioned upon individual review of the quote and individual approval of the quote.
Which
That
would-
whole,
is that proper to do that?
Rob, I'm asking Karis.
Yeah,
I'm having trouble understanding all this, Steve, but
so I think that the problem is if you have issues or concerns, you're gonna have to revote. You may have to revote.
Understood.
I wanna, yes, you may vote contingent upon seeing the list. And then Rob can get the list to Cassandra and Cassandra will keep it with the materials and she can circulate it out to the board. You can't have any further conversation about it other than, I want to put this on the agenda for the next meeting if you have a concern.
Got it. Okay, so
That makes sense?
yes, it does. So
does that mean we can't give the go ahead once we send this out? Can't give a go ahead on
Rob,
this?
bear with me, Rob. The chair moves that we vote condition upon review of the written estimate. Each member then can indicate to Cassandra Thayer their approval or disapproval, assuming that all members voting approve, then this would be considered to be an approved project and a vote in favor.
Can I just modify that a bit, Steve?
The chair will hear your modification.
The vote today is to approve contingent upon review. You can't vote by email. So I think what I would suggest is then that if is contingent upon review, and if there is a concern, then indicate to Cassandra and the chair that the matter needs to go on the agenda for the next meeting, where you would have to revote.
Okay.
That's
so
about the only way I can think of to let you do it this way.
No, the chair withdraws the original motion and moves for a conditional vote on the 43 Elm Street rehabilitation project. Period. The documented estimate will be circulated to each member by Cassandra Thayer within the next 24 hours, Rob?
Yeah,
Okay, within the next 24 hours.
As you say, I couldn't do it yesterday and Monday we're closed. After this meeting, I've got to go somewhere, and Cassandra, you're gonna be there. I will bring it down. And you can get it out today, but
Rob, I'm in the middle of the motion. Okay, so let me finish it. All right, any reservation by any trust member will cause this vote to be nullified and require a regularly scheduled meeting. I'm sorry, will require a scheduled meeting with an open meeting discussion on the topic as a whole. Does that sound right, Karis? You okay with that? Okay, so if this vote passes and review of the estimate brings up no concerns or requirement for deliberation, then we move forward. Okay, in other words, the project's approved and we can go ahead. I suspect, because I know the type of work that you do, I suspect that we will be satisfied with it. But as Karis points out, we don't have the luxury of being able to foretell that at the moment. Okay. If for any reason there are questions on this such that some one of us would be reluctant to move forward, then I will endeavor to schedule a meeting as soon as humanly possible so that we can take this one item up. Okay?
Okay, just, if I could, I'm just making sure I understand. So if it's sent out to everybody and there's no discussion, the difference versus this quote, and we note it comes up with anything, then we can move forward.
Yeah, and I would argue that not argue. I would point out that Cassandra should know that pretty quickly, because I would imagine that when she distributes it, she's going to request a review and then a relatively immediate response from each of us.
That was going to be a point that I was just going to bring up, that if anybody does have an issue that they would like brought up at the next meeting, if they could give a response as quickly as possible. That way, if there is not an issue, Rob can move forward.
Yeah.
Right, and limit your response, please, to, I would like this to discuss at the next meeting. Please don't go into your concerns in detail, because that's deliberation too. So.
Okay. One last point of clarification for me personally. If there are questions that might be clarified simply because of the familiarity with the project, could an individual member ask those questions of Rob directly?
So long as it's not a quorum. No,
I'm talking about a one-on-one.
But if if 4 members have a one-on-one with Rob, or 3 members have a one-on-one with Rob, then you run into a quorum issue.
Okay. All right. Nope. Thank you for the clarification. Okay.
Seconded.
There's a motion from the chair on the table. Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, by roll. We will vote on the motion. Cindy Matheson,
Cindy Matheson, aye.
Rob Henry,
Rob Henry, aye.
Rob Jeffers,
Rob Jeffers, aye.
Steve Gomer, aye. Okay, motion passes. And we'll look for the document to be distributed shortly. All right. Next item on the agenda is the MassDOT property on 3A. That was a discussion to be led by Ted. Ted's not here, so we'll table that. The last item outside of administrative items is the One Pleasant Street acquisition and a vote. And frankly, as chair, I am not comfortable bringing this forward at the moment for a vote one way or the other, because as we've all discussed, there is a vacuum on information that we seem to collectively ask for. If I hear differently from the trust, then we can discuss that. But let's start with that. Is there a desire to move forward with any vote one way or the other? Cindy Matheson.
I would just say, I think because of the size of this project and the investment involved, I would be more comfortable. We have a quorum, I know that works, but it would be nice to have a fuller participation of the trustees.
Agreed. Okay. Rob, I noticed that you were indicating that you didn't want to move forward. Is that something you want to put words to?
Yeah, no, I just don't think, I don't even know what I would be voting on. So it's like, yeah, I agree with you 100%. We need more information.
Okay, thank you. Rob Henry?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to administrative stuff. Next meeting date, November 8th, possibly earlier. I don't anticipate that, but possibly earlier. minutes from September 13. Has everybody had a chance to look at them? Yes,
Yeah.
okay. Anyone want to move it?
Move to approve the minutes from September 13th.
Sorry.
Okay. Okay, we got a motion and a second. Let's start, once again, Cindy Matheson,
Cindy Matheson, aye.
Rob Henry,
Rob Henry, aye.
Rob Jeffers.
Jeffers, aye.
Um, Karis, can I vote that? I wasn't here.
You
I
may
wasn't
vote that,
included.
yes.
Okay, yeah, then
You're relying on your colleagues as to the accuracy.
thank
Not
you.
to mention Christine, who is exquisite.
Yeah, I have to tell you that first of all, we're up to date, which is really nice, and the minutes are cogent. Yeah. All right. Any topics not anticipated 48 hours prior? Rob
Liz,
Jeff-
just one question on the next meeting. When is the annual, when is this meeting, the vote, the
special
annual?
town meeting?
I believe it's the 13th.
November 13th.
Okay, so we will meet before that. Okay, good. So, awesome, that's all.
All right. Then motion to adjourn. Anybody?
Second.
Okay. Oh, that wasn't the motion. Okay.
Oh, okay, motion to
Yeah,
adjourn.
motions to adjourn. And we have,
Second,
all right. Cindy Matheson,
Cindy Matheson, aye.
Rob Henry,
Rob Henry, aye.
Rob Jeffers,
Aye.
and Steve Gomer. Aye. We are now adjourned. Karis, thank you very much for attending.
Yeah, thank you so much for your patience in trying to work through all the hurdles of municipal law.
No,
I
no.
appreciate everybody's time and understanding. So
Best to keep ourselves out of the clink. All
that's right.
We are
Take
now
care,
adjourned.
everybody.
Thank you, folks. Take care.